Alright, quick check. Alright, quick check. There we go. Alright, hello and welcome to LSR Group 2 Round 3 here at China. So hopefully, thank you for joining us today. Let me get everything set up here. That should be all set. Of course, welcome here to Shanghai, China. Of course, Shanghai, the Chinese character of Shang being a lot of the inspiration for the design of this track, which was first raced at in 2004, though we haven't seen it in real life since 2019. Of course, 16 turns, just under 5.5 kilometers. Of course, being the site of a number of very important, big, important moments in F1 history. Of course, being the first site of wins for both Mercedes and Red Bull, as well as the site of Michael Schumacher's final victory back in 2006. But today, F1 LSR will be coming to Shanghai, of course, for the first time, if I'm not mistaken, ever, unless there was a race a couple of years ago that we had, but of course, debuting China, at least for the season. Of course, we had Group 1 yesterday, but of course, we got Group 2 today. But number of interesting features around the circuit. Of course, two 270-degree turns. Of course, you got turns 1 and 2, and you can see Viperize coming up to the final one, right? Other 270-degree right-hand turn. You can see, of course, this being turn number 13. Of course, coming down this 1.17 kilometer back straight, so just under 3/4 of a mile for our American viewers. Of course, you can see all the drivers working hard to get those tires warmed up for a lap. Of course, we'll stay on board with Viperize throughout this first lap in the Mercedes. Of course, Mercedes in real life being the winningest team here at China. Of course, coming out of turn 16, going to have to watch out for numerous drivers invalidating out of that final corner, just going a little bit wide of that curbing and being very careful. But of course, you got the run down here into turns 1 and 2. Very important to get it right, as it's that very long, continuous slowdown. Of course, and then you drop down into turns number 3 and 4, which is an immediate left-hander. Of course, and then get the power down nicely here to end Sector 1, up into turns 5, hard braking, right-hander for turn 6. And now we get into the little bit of S's section, of course, 7, 8, and 9. Of course, it's going to be very important to make sure to keep the back end underneath you coming through this section. Of course, going to be switching back and forth. Going to be not likely to see many overtakes around here as we come through turns number 9 and 10. Again, that's another spot. That exit of turn 10 going to be a spot to watch out for some invalidations. And then hard braking here for 11 and the second 270-degree right-hander of turn 12. And then, of course, once again, this very, very long back straight where it's going to be very important to get a good run out of. Of course, we're unlikely to see cars lose both front tires, as we saw Sebastian Buemi do back in 2010, though it'd certainly be an interesting sight to see on this game. And then very hard braking, certainly going to be a number of overtaking opportunities here into turn number 14. Of course, you got that slight kink out of there into 15, and the final turn of turn 16, and it will be Viperize to set the first benchmark of this qualifying session. He comes to the line and sets a 132.899. The Alfa Romeo of Omega behind him sets a 134.2. We got Reese coming in as well. I believe he's on a bit of a slow lap, but one of the Aston Martins behind him as James goes second with a 133.3. Here comes the other, let's see, the cars kind of pinging all over the place. We got Dodoligo as well as one of the in the Haas, as well as one of the McLarens coming out of the final corner. So we'll have to see where they slot in. Dodoligo with a slow lap, so likely a big mistake for him, as the McLaren seems to be just starting the lap. Kevin Cal for Mercedes. If I can get to him, he's coming to the line next. Can he jump up past his teammate up into provisional pole position? No, as he's just starting his lap as well. Let's see. Alexis Beast runs a little bit wide there at turn 1. Of course, we got Speedy Gunner just starting a lap of his own. Fedora goes 6th with a 134.9. And the other Aston Martin of Formula Jonah comes in with a 134.2. There's Alpine coming down that back straight into the hairpin now, so going to have to try and find him real quick through the hairpin now. Here comes Bamboo Vegas. I believe, is he just starting a lap? No, he's coming to the line to set his lap. Of course, Bamboo, definitely one of the big championship contenders here for Alpine, comes to the line with a 132.7, so he'll take provisional pole away from Viperize, but it's early on here, as we have, I believe, a number of cars coming around making their in-laps. It's currently Bamboo Vegas on pole position for Alpine, followed by Viperize and Tommy XXC. A couple of yellow flags up ahead. Let's see. So there's Dodoligo, who I believe is going to be on an in-lap here. Going to have to be kind of careful with that McLaren right there behind him. Of course, going to stay out of the way is a little bit of a jumpy McLaren, as we do get Kendrick, so we will have at least 17 drivers here on this Sunday afternoon, as here comes Kevin Cowell around, just to set likely a banker time, and he will go 6th fastest with a 133.5, so respectable first lap time to slot him into 6th. I believe that's Speedy Gunner coming into slot into 10th with a 135.5 for Red Bull. His teammate Alexis Beast did invalidate that last lap, so that time will not stand, so he'll have to take another run at it. Of course, there's Jim on an out lap. He'll be just getting started for Williams, so we'll have to see where he comes in, but it's still Bamboo Vegas, currently with that provisional pole for Alpine, by just over a 10th away from Viperize behind him, so good showing early for the Alpine driver. Of course, coming in rather carefully. Of course, no gravel on the outside of that pit lane entrance, so hopefully nobody pulling a Lewis Hamilton and going a little bit deep there on pit lane entry and ending their race there. As we can see, Reese coming around for Ferrari as Oreo African sets a 22.2 and disconnects, which is strange. Well, that put Oreo on pole, but that was certainly very strange. Of course, it's showing Oreo as having that purple lap time, which is very confusing, but we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. First of all, hopefully we can get Oreo back in, as we do have Jim making his way around. Of course, plenty of fuel in that Williams, as he's going to shift up nice and early to get the power down onto this back straight. We jump around. I believe he is the only one on a significant lap at the moment, so we'll have to see where the Williams slots into. Of course, number 83 trying to keep it nice and clean through that hairpin on exit. You don't want to run too wide out there, but you also want to really make sure you're getting the power down early and really maximize the run out of there. And to the line, where does Jim go? Jim sets a 134.0, which also gives him fastest lap, which is very, very strange. I'm not sure if that just means he went faster than Oreo African, or if that reset the time, as KevProd jumps up ahead of Jim with a 133.615. So I think that's just a little bit of a visual glitch there. Here comes R. Stratting, I believe, to the line to start his lap. So the Ferrari, currently sitting in P5, is going to be looking to chase after James, who does seem to be potentially on the end of the lap. No, he's just starting his lap, so we'll have to watch out and see if James can jump up the order at all, and potentially challenge Bamboo Vegas and Viperize out ahead of him. Of course, sitting on board here with R. Stratting, also realize I don't have his lap data up, so I'll go ahead and pull that up. Apologies for that, but of course, see R. Stratting coming through Sector 2, tight twisting S's section. We're coming up into turns number 9 and 10 here. Again, not likely to see many overtakes here, but it could be a possibility to set something up down here into turn number 11 right before the DRS zone. Of course, going to have to keep it nice and tidy and very easy to lose the back end here as you accelerate and really want to get on the power early through turn 12. So our starting looking good again, looking quite good still. Of course, powering down the back straight, going to see speeds, as you can see down on the steering wheel, of upwards of 205 miles an hour right before slamming on the brakes. On the power nice and early. And swinging back to the right for this 90-degree left-hander. Of course, and he'll keep it within the track limits. So our Strouting will come to the line, and he will jump up into P3. So he jumps up ahead of both Tommy and James. Of course, James on a hot lap behind him. He's up 2/10 through his first two sectors. And here he comes now into turn number 16, of course, under that Rolex advertising banner. A little bit of a twitch there on the exit. As James comes to the line, he will go second fastest, so just quicker than Viperize by about half a hundredth. Viperize, of course, down by 1.8 seconds that time. I believe Kevin Cal there just starting his lap, as we do lose Alexis Beast. So that was so hopefully, again, that's another driver we can get back into the session. Of course, Bamboo Vegas there invalidating his lap. Not sure whether he's on an out lap or not. Let's see if we can find anybody on a lap. Of course, Viperize diving into the pits. Tommy XXC up at 10th through the first two sectors. So let's see if he can pull up at any time in that third sector to boost his McLaren up in that qualifying order. He comes to the line and he will go second fastest. So just 0.02 back of Bamboo Vegas' time. So a very solid showing from the McLaren driver. So got our Strouting coming in. Kevin Cal up 2.5 tenths in those first couple of sectors. So certainly with a strong showing early. Again, you're going to have to be very careful getting on the power. Of course, you want to take a little bit of a later apex through turn 12 to really maximize that traction. Of course, blasting down the back straight now. Of course, DRS wide open there. Hard braking going to be important to get this right. Does very nicely, able to get comfortably on the power. Of course, Kevin finishing third in the Group 1 race yesterday. Definitely go give that a watch after this one if you have the chance. We do lose Alexis Beast again, but of course DRS open for Kevin Cal. He'll only jump up to 5th, so he'll be just behind his teammate of Viperize. As we do have an Alfa Romeo coming to the line as well. That is Omega. He does not improve. There's a Ferrari behind him who either does not improve or is just starting a lap, and a Haas coming through those final couple of corners. It's Dodoligo. He's up 11 seconds after making a mistake on that first lap. If he comes to the line, he will go 7th fastest, so it's currently a Haas 7.8 after it's Dodoligo with a 133.3 there. So very solid showing from him. I believe the Alpha Tauri should be next to the line. I believe, again, just to start the lap, Speedy Gunner struggling with ping, so potentially some connection issues affecting a lot of our drivers here today. We have Ferrari off the track in Sector 2. So we have Fedora already up 7.5 tenths on his lap time through Sector 1. Or actually, no, I believe that was on his lap, so he's in 12th. Let's see, yeah, he's got a much lower delta there. So as we can see, the Ferrari of Speedy Gunner really struggling there. Runs a little bit deep at pit lane entry. As Kevin Cal has now left the session. So a lot of drivers really, really struggling with connection issues. Hopefully those can get sorted out before the race begins. But I think a number of drivers really, really struggling during this qualifying session. We got KevProd up a 10.5 as of right now, making his way in Sector 2. He's up 2 tenths. Of course, he's going to need about 2.5 to 3 tenths if he wants to jump above his teammate and further into P7. As the Haas comes down to the back straight, you can see a little bit of traffic there in front of him as Oreo left the session. So loads of disconnects here. Of course, Crossplay not as stable as we would like. So, hopefully, again, it's not as much of an issue during the race. Of course, in qualifying, it's plaguing a lot of drivers. As you can see the cars behind Kevprod there, who is going to come to the line. He's going to improve by 4/10, so he'll jump both his teammate of Dodoligo as well as the Ferrari of Arstrading. Jim now, he's up 2/10 early on in his lap. Of course, making his way through turn number 8. Now, through 9 and 10, of course, not going to want to run too wide because you risk losing a decent bit of time, a little wide there from the Williams. But he's still up about 3/10, so he's going to be challenging Formula Jonah's lap time. Of course, purple sector 2 popping up there, though that's likely just a personal best. A little bit of a twitch there, it seemed, from that Williams. Again, a little bit wide, really flirting with the track limits there at turn number 12 as he comes down onto this back straight. DRS wide open at the rear. So we can see now coming up, braking hard at about that 100-meter board for this tight hairpin. And of course, you got that other, got this next little kink of turn 15. Coming now into turn number 16. So let's see where Jim can jump up for the Williams team. He comes to the line, and he will go 9th fastest, so just jumps ahead of Formula Jonah. Of course, then here comes Viperize to the line. He will go 3rd fastest, so solid showing from the Mercedes. I believe we do have Alexis Beast there just starting his lap. Of course, he's been struggling with disconnects all through qualifying as we just jump below 2 minutes left to go here. So a number of drivers are going to be looking to go out and get those laps started, one of whom, of course, being Speedy Gunner, currently sitting in 13th. Taking a look, is anybody on a lap? Arstrading does not appear to be, so we'll have to check that. Alfa Romeo next coming down in that lone run down the back straight of Omega. Same kind of story there. So we'll jump on board with Speedy as he continues his lap. Of course, he'll be one of the first, it seems, to get that final run of qualifying. Of course, currently sitting 13th with just about a minute to go. So everybody in the pit lane will likely not be able to set a lap. And whether that's due to disconnect or just troubleshooting issues, hopefully they're all able to get back in before the start of the race. Of course, Speedy Gunner making his way through this S section, approaching turn 8 now. Of course, got 9 and 10 coming up. We'll have to see where his delta sits as he makes his way through the exit. A little bit of lag there you can see from the Red Bull almost. So certainly a lot of struggle as we now have about 30 seconds left to go. As I missed that delta there pop up for Speedy. But of course he's coming through turns 11 and 12 now. Of course, powering on the back straight, yellow flag in sector 3. I believe that's just for a Mercedes out of fuel. As 15 seconds left to go, so everybody on track will be able to get their lap time in. As here comes Speedy, hard braking now into turns number 14 and 15. Of course, going to want to keep it nice and clean as Viperize will not improve. He set a 132.8, so currently sits in P3. Speedy Gunner out of the final corner for the last time in qualifying. He will not go faster even after improving, so he will start 14th. The Ferrari will be next to the line. That's our Strouting. He's up a 10th through the first 2 sectors. So where can the Ferrari go? He will not improve as there he goes in turn 16, losing that back end, and he will not improve. Of course, we're going to have a lobby restart after this qualifying session as here comes Omega to the line. Can Omega improve? He will only improve up to P11. Alpine will be the next line. That's your current pole sitter of Bamboo Vegas. He was up early on in his lap. Can the pole sitter improve? Yes, he will, and that's a 132.4. It's an Aston Martin of James next to the line. Of course, he currently sits in P4. He cannot improve, so he will stay starting there. Dodoligo, I believe, will be one of the last couple to set a time here in qualifying through this final left-hander. The Haas now running to the line. He's currently P8. He jumps up to P5, so he gets up ahead of Kevin Cal. Alpha Tauri next to the line. That's Fedora. He will not improve from P13. And Alexis Beast, there your final runner of qualifying, has invalidated. So we will have a lobby restart here. But this will be your starting grid, unless Tommy can do anything about it. He does improve, but by not enough. He'll improve by less than a 10th. But he will start P2, so it is Bamboo Vegas who will be starting from Tommy XXC here in his here in Group 2, followed by Viperize, James, and Dodoligo. So, of course, a number of drivers really struggling with connection issues. But, of course, we will have a lobby restart here now after qualifying, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue, and hopefully we can get some of those issues sorted out later on in this race, which should be very interesting. I believe we're going to have 28 laps around Shanghai, and of course there's your pole sitter of Bamboo Vegas, so certainly stay with us. We'll have a little bit of time. I'm going to pause the stream real quick as we get those technical bugs sorted out, but of course we are going to have that lobby restart, and of course it'll be Bamboo Vegas from Tommy, Viperize, James, Dodoligo, and Kevin Cal. Now KevProd, Arstrotting, Jim, Jonah, Omega, Alexis, Fedora, Speedy, Reese, Oreo, and Kendricks. And of course we are going to have that lobby restart, so stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly. Stay with us. Again, for those of you just sitting here, we are having a couple of technical issues real quick, so hopefully you are sticking with us. Of course, still waiting on a couple of things here, but we should have a new lobby up very shortly and should be able to get started. So, of course, stay with us. Of course, if you're interested in joining LSR, of course, definitely either put a comment in chat right now or in the comments down below if you're watching this video after. And if you're interested in being able to experience more live League racing action, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Of course, we just passed 100 subscribers very recently, and we just hit 110 very recently, actually. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon down below to be up to date whenever we go live. We'd certainly love to see you back here very, very consistently. But again, just stay tuned. Should be getting back underway shortly. Again, sorry for the delay. We do have that new lobby up, but just working on the last couple of things. Should be another 5 to 10 minutes max before we get started. So definitely go grab water or a quick snack, and then join right back, and we'll be ready to get underway. Alright, and we are hopefully back now, as we are loading in here for the race now, here at Shanghai. Again, sorry for that brief delay. Of course, should hopefully be better this time around, and thank you for sticking with us. Again, just struggling a little bit with cross-play issues. And hopefully we can get everybody to load in. As hopefully... Oh... Okay, there we go. We did get it. Alright, so there we go. It should be all set. Should be seeing a countdown fairly shortly, but of course drivers making sure their setups and strategies are all set. Of course, we'll be all set here, but of course Bamboo Vegas certainly the favorite after qualifying on pole for Alpine, but wouldn't be surprised to see a number of drivers jump up the order. Is now 10 seconds before we go racing. Again, sorry about that delay, but thank you for sticking with us. And again, definitely stay tuned later for Group 3 racing at the end of this race. Also around China, but of course we got 3, 4, and 5 lights. And we are underway here in China. And it seems to be a decent getaway for all the drivers, but it's Tommy with a great getaway, as does Viperize, as they jump up into 1 and 2. It's 3 wide behind a spinning Mercedes. I believe that killed Bamboo Vegas, but Alexis Beast is round. There's Speedy Gunner dropping down the order, as is Kevin Cow. So Kevin spins out of turn 1, and it's Tommy taking the lead for McLaren as we make our way now through sector 2. Of course, Oreo as well with an incident there at turn 1. So it's the Mercedes, McLaren, and Red Bull all falling off early, but it's Tommy and Viperize with great getaways. Bamboo with Vegas with a horrible one as Alexis Beast overtakes Kev Prod down the order. But it is Tommy XXC leading the way for McLaren, starting on those medium compound tires. Of course, you can see that predicted pit stop strategy from AWS as Kendricks and Jim swap places as they battle towards the rear of the field, and that's, I believe, that is Kendricks down. Of course, we do have a disconnect already. I believe that's Speedy Gunner already with some issues. Of course, host migration going on now, so hopefully we can get Speedy back. But a disconnect there from the Red Bull as scatters up and down the order as the Alfa Romeo runs a little bit wide there. Of course, coming down the back straight, Viperize closing in on Tommy XXC. He's going to look to the outside. He's going to switch back to the inside as Tommy all over the place there. The Mercedes taking a look down the inside. Viperize will have the inside line, but he's not going to be able to get it done as Tommy, with a better exit there, is able to hold on to P1 for the moment and will lead now at the end of lap 1. Of course, Bamboo Vegas down there in third. Viperize now looking up the inside. Is he going to make the move into turn 1? He will, so we're going to be deploying a lot of energy, and he's going to take the inside, and he's going to hold that advantage. And it's the Mercedes now taking the lead as we begin lap 2, and we'll hold that lead. Of course, Reese, Jim, and Speedy all diving into the pit lane. Of course, going to take, let me see, I can grab a moment, as Jonah, I believe, Jonah has, Formula Jonah for Aston Martin has problems. He lost the back end there in turn 1 and 2, whether that was contact or other reasons, I don't quite know. But of course, he's going to drop down the order. He's sitting in 13th, but his Viper is now going to be looking to stretch his legs early. Of course, Bamboo Vegas getting a poor start there due to those hard compound tires. Of course, taking a look at the grid, it's mostly mediums up and down the grid. Of course, you got Bamboo Vegas, Kev Prod, and Arstrading, as well as Dodoligo, all on hard tires. So they're going to be looking to make moves later on in this race. Of course, I'm going to try to invite Speedy Gunner back if he isn't in here already. So do that really quickly as we come onto the back straight now. That is the wrong group. But hopefully we can get him back as Strutting and Omega swap spots. So we come down the back straight. It is Viperize with a quite healthy lead now over Tommy. Yellow flags. I believe that's for an Alpine, if I'm not mistaken, or just a bit of a random yellow flag there. Spun car down at the hairpin. That is the McLaren of Tommy. So losing the back end there at that final hairpin. He's going to drop down the order, which moves Alexis Beast up into P2. He got past Bamboo Vegas. Of course, the Alpine looking to make a move now. He's going to look up the inside into this long-term 1-2. Does he have the advantage over the Red Bull? Yes, he does. So it's the Alpine of Bamboo Vegas recovering very nicely. As Omega and R-Strading go side by side, the Ferrari looking up the inside. He's going to have the outside now through turns 3 and 4. And I believe there was contact there between Omega and R-Strading. So it's the Alfa Romeo tagging that Ferrari. Of course, the Alfa Romeo giving that position back, and it's the AlphaTauri of Fedora looking to take advantage and makes contact. And Omega is out of this race. He has retired, and that is that looks to be a virtual safety car for the moment. And no, it isn't, and that is going to turn quickly into a full safety car. So Omega tagging that Ferrari early on, and then the AlphaTauri just trying to split that gap with a load of speed, just with nowhere to go, and had to try and go in between. Just clipped Omega's Alfa Romeo, and Omega sadly is out of this race. For Speedy attempting to rejoin. Big contact due to crossplay? No, I don't think so. I think that was due to, at least at that contact was more due to Bot Fedora just trying to split the distance, as Omega was trying to give that position back to R-Strading after the incident, and ultimately he just had nowhere to go. But of course, this is going to bunch the field up and will bring those drivers who had that incident early on back into this race. Of course, Jim able to pit off those hard compound tires. Let me properly send Speedy Gunner that invite now. Try and get him back in, but 1 DNF out of 18 drivers already. Of course, we unluckily did have to restart our first lobby just due to a lot of connection issues that don't seem to have completely abated, but hopefully should get a little bit better throughout this race. Of course, going to try to get Speedy Gunner back in for that Red Bull team. But Viperize with a very good start and currently leads, as you can see, pulling up to the back of that Mercedes safety car. Bamboo Vegas, a bit of a poor start early on in this race for him. Of course, starting on those hard compound tires, but after the safety car restart, should have a little bit more of an advantage. Of course, our pole sitter sitting P2, Alexis Beast for Red Bull with a solid start early, sitting P3 at the moment. We've got Kev Prod for Haas sitting in 4th, also on that hard compounded tire, so watch out for him as this race continues. JD Bass, of course, missed qualifying, but has gone from last to 5th for Alfa Romeo. Fedora there with that incident that resulted in this safety car. Of course, definitely going to go to stewards for review, as all our incidents do, but certainly his AlphaTauri doesn't seem to have come off too poorly, but of course going to be disappointing for him. We got R-Strading for Ferrari sitting 7th. Of course, Tommy, who picked up that lead early, currently sitting in 8th. Of course, then Kevin Cal, of course, sitting 9th with Dodoligo in 10th, and then the 2 Aston Martins. Of course, luckily, we are hopefully going to get Speedy Gunner back. I did see him rejoin, but of course his car still ghosted for the moment, so hopefully we can get him back in before this safety car restarts. Of course, Jim still well behind by about half a lap. As I believe that penalty for R-Strading was that for a collision. I just looked away briefly and missed that. I believe there's a ghosted Aston Martin as well. Is that James ghosted for Aston Martin? No, it's his teammate of Formula Jonah, I believe. So we'll have to see what happens with him as Omega leaves the session. Certainly just a lot of issues. As there goes Speedy Gunner again, so we may have another lobby restart, as just crossplay being an absolute mess today. So we can see a number of cars ghosted there as they come up. R-Strading and Tommy will swap places once again. Of course, R-Strading with that 5-second penalty that will have to be reviewed. And JD Bass, I believe, went round, and there's cars looking up the inside everywhere and making contact, and it will be Fedora up into 6th. But certainly a strange incident there where those cars are going to have to swap places. because safety car should be in very shortly. Of course, we did have a Speedy Gunner leave. There is Formula Jonah ghosted out, so hopefully we can get them back in. But we'll certainly have to wait and see. Again, so very, very strange. And again, Crossplay just not doing us any sort of favors as we do get Speedy Gunner back. So hopefully he can take back over for his car. Of course, safety car should be in rather shortly here. Let me see if I can get Jonah back in here. Go ahead and send that his way, so hopefully he can get back in. Safety car does not seem to be in quite this lap, so unless we get a late trigger, we should have one more lap under safety car, as we have a couple of drivers swapping places. But yeah, just a bunch of drivers back there, just really trying to overtake everybody. And I think Oreo, potentially with a spin there, just trying to warm up those tires, maybe? Or just maybe going into AI, but that was certainly very strange from the McLaren. But yeah, just the order swapping all over. Of course, that safety car being a little bit slower on some of these corners, as a number of them are very, very tight, and results in this car needing a lot more downforce. I think Speedy's just really having a lot of issues trying to rejoin, as he was that original host, and that disconnect from him, really just struggling and giving him really not a big ability. As I believe that Kendricks with a spin. Is that Kendricks with a spin? It was Kendricks with a spin. He did run, looked like he ran wide there at 1 and 2, so he's at the back of the grid. JD Bass drops a couple of places. As we have broadcast, do we have broadcast safety car on? We do have broadcast safety car on. Okay, well that's new, so a potential little incident there, I suppose, but of course we're going to have broadcast here. That's very strange. But of course, coming up here to the end of the safety car incident, are we going to have another lap under safety car? It does seem we will, so it looks like we'll be getting back going here on lap 7. It's very interesting to see if all the drivers are also experiencing this, because this is certainly not something we normally have. But of course, you can see that order there on the left-hand side of your screen. Of course, you got R. Strading for Ferrari there, setting P6, but with a 5-second time penalty. And should have the Mercedes safety car pulling away now. A safety car will be in this lap. As it should start pulling away just about now. Of course, thank you for joining us, especially if you are new to the stream. Of course, make sure to like and subscribe down below. Of course, having a lot of technical difficulties today, sadly. And can I not change? Of course, safety car now in this lap officially. So Viperize now controls the pack, but he's going to have to give that safety car just a little bit more space now as we come into the hairpin. Of course, that Mercedes safety car, of course, going to be preparing to go back racing again. But of course, Hafrican with a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So he overtook under safety car, and now trying to give that position back. Just absolute chaos behind there. And here goes Viperize for the restart, very clean, and Bamboo Vegas could fall victim to Alexis Speed, looking around the outside now. Speedy Gunner well at the back. There was an incident there in those final couple of corners as James gets a time penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So a lot of drivers really just either messing up that jump, as Bamboo Vegas able to defend through those first 4 turns. Of course, it being that twisty section, but it's Viperize with an early pull away. He's got a second gap as James and Formula Jonah swap spots. There's yellow flag in sector 1. That's for a spun McLaren. Gonna have to stay out of the way. Of course, looking at the AI there of Jonah, taking a look. Not gonna quite get a move done, but Viperize now gonna have to try and pull away from Bamboo Vegas here on lap number 8. Of course, a lot of technical difficulties for us today, sadly. But it is Viperize currently with a 1.1 second advantage as that yellow flag disappears. Of course, the Mercedes is looking to keep it nice and tidy as you come down onto the back straight. course, no DRS for 2 laps after the safety car, so Viperize is going to be looking to make full advantage of whatever life is left in those medium compound tires. Of course, Alexis Starting and Fedora swap places there out of the final couple of corners, as Fedora, I believe, made a mistake back there as Tommy gets him as well. But of course, the Red Bull of Alexis Beast and the Haas of Kev Prod, of course, staying right in touch here with Bamboo Vegas as Tommy and R starting. Tommy with another issue out of that hairpin as he did earlier. He'll drop way down into 10th, and there's going to be a scramble here through these final couple of corners. The Alfa Romeo of JD Bass is now looking to make a move on Fedora as Tommy runs very wide on that final corner. Of course, the Alfa Romeo and the Alfa Tauri side by side as they run into turn 1. Who's going to have the advantage early? Of course, the Mercedes of Kevin looking there, and it's 2x2 as James looking up the inside of Kevin and looking to make full advantage if he can. Can he make 2 moves in 4 corners? He'll look for the switchback here. And as they come out the other side, it is the Aston Martin of James taking a look up the inside. Can he make that move stick? Here's the Alfa Tauri in front of him that he has to watch out for, because the Alfa Romeo looking at the inside, and there's contact there between the Alfa Romeo and the Alfa Tauri. So JD Bass into the side of Bud Fedora, who doesn't seem to have any damage, but certainly a little bit risky there from JD Bass. But up at the front, it is Viperize currently, still with about a 10th and with a second and change early on in this race. If we are on lap 9 here, as you can see, a little bit loose there from JD Bass. Of course, James is going to be looking at the inside of the AlphaTauri of Fedora. Not going to quite be able to make that move stick, as a little bit loose, a little touch. As the Aston Martin now back up the inside. Can he make the move stick? He can, and Fedora loses 2 positions there in those final couple of corners. As James, with a nice little move there, up into 7th place. Of course, Viperize with a nice little healthy gap there, only about a second, as DRS will be activated on this lap. Of course, 1.1 seconds is the gap, so Viperize currently keeping Bamboo Vegas outside of DRS range as Fedora loses multiple places. He'll dive into the pit lane, so potentially he did get damage there from JD Bass down at the run into that hairpin at the beginning of sector number 1. As Speedy Gunner as well. His AI will dive into the pit lane. But of course, Viperize is going to be looking to run away now at the front as the pack starts to spread out a little bit. Of course, you got James trying to hunt down JD. But as well right now, it is Viperize still with a little bit of a gap to Bamboo Vegas behind. Of course, Alexis Beast and Kevprod still not out of this fight. They'll have DRS with Alexis Beast they'll have DRS with Bamboo Vegas, rather. That depends on Alexis Beast staying within that DRS range. Of course, good run here through these final couple of corners, but that gap still just over a second, and he's going to have to close up through this left and right-hander, and he loses time through there. As Tommy XSD out of this race, he has spun, and he is out of this race. Can we see the incident as we come to the Ferrari? I believe... So he seems to have retired. He thought he was out of the race, but that McLaren will pull off to the side and retire there. So that's our second retirement so far today, and it'll be Tommy XSC from McLaren, who started so well early, but is now, of course, out of this race. It's James able to overtake JD Bass with the assistance of DRS down the back straight. Going to defend a little bit there, but is going to be able to make sure that move is done and look to continue to jump up the order. As we come through these final couple of corners, our Striding is going to have to chase after Kevprod now. As we start lap number 11, of course, 2 DNFs already. One due to an incident that caused our first safety car early on in this race. Of course, James in Aston Martin, we've seen a number of good moves from him, but he's made a number of moves after the safety car restart, going from about 11th or 12th up to 6th. Along with a nice little double move through that first compound of corners. But of course, R. Strutting and JD Bass all with penalties early on in this race, and they'll probably not be the only ones we'll see get penalties. But of course, at the front, this battle's starting to lengthen out a little bit. Viperize is really starting to stretch that gap. It's up to about a second and a half here on lap number 11. That's the Mercedes trying to continue that Mercedes dominance that we've seen in real life in Shanghai, of course, with that outfit winning, if I'm not mistaken, 6 Formula One Grand Prix around here, and of course that gap up to 1.6 seconds now. So Viper is really just making good use of those medium compound tires in this first stint. But of course, Bamboo Vegas is going to be very dangerous later once he makes the switch. Of course, Alexis Beast behind 2.1 seconds. He's got the Haas of KevProd taking a look to the inside. Not going to have the move come up as we go through turn number 14. And he'll be able to defend nicely. Kevin Cal able to overtake JD Bass through the hairpin. Will he be able to make that move stick as they go side by side now through turn number 16? Of course, Kevin will have another shot now into the first couple of corners as he's right on the gearbox of that Alfa Romeo and looks to the outside. He's past him for now. Can he make that move stick? He will. He'll be well ahead as he runs into turn 1. So that's Kevin Cal up into P7. As you can see, the battle for third still going on between Alexis Beast and KevProd. And of course, this is going to be a rather significant challenge here as they are continuously losing time to the two drivers ahead. Of course, the gap between Alexis Beast and Bamboo Vegas now up to 2.5 seconds when it was at about 1.5. Just about a lap ago at this point. As you can see, Alexis Beast running a little bit wide here through turns 7 and 8. Gonna have to keep it nice and comfortable here through this section, and he will. But of course, that gap only at about half a second. Of course, you're going to gain a lot of time down that very, very long back straight with the run down into turn number 14 as we can come through turns number 12 and 13 now, and that Haas very close to the back of the Red Bull. The gap under 0.3 as we pop out and onto this 1.1 kilometer back straight. Of course, that Haas tucking in, yellow flag in sector 1 for a McLaren, but the Haas wide with DRS wide open. He's going to look to the outside now as we run down into the hairpin. Of course, late braking, going to be not quite have the advantage, and look potentially for the cutback on exit. Not great early on, but a decent run out. But of course, you can see that red light blinking on the back of the Haas, indicating that he's out of ERS. But a quarter of a second now is the gap. Of course, second helping of DRS now down the pit straight. Going to look once again to the outside. Now switches to the inside rather late. But it's the Red Bull holding the advantage. And of course, R starting to join the fight as Formula Jonah is his AI pitting early here. Of course, sadly, not able to get him back, as well as Speedy Gunner. So those are effectively, I believe, 2 more DNSs. We have just had big struggles with connection during the course of this race. But of course, the gap up at the front, 1.2 seconds between Viperize and Bamboo Vegas. That gap starting to come down significantly as James able to overtake the Ferrari of R Strouting in a rather unusual place there in Sector 2. But now he will potentially be able to attack KevProd and Alexis Beast. So very, very strong from the Aston Martin. Of course, taking a look at that battle for third, it is still Alexis Beast holding that advantage. Taking a look at that ERS sitting at about 40% for the Red Bull driver. Of course, that Haas going to be potentially under threat from James's Aston Martin, as you can see all over the back of him, as the other Haas, Dodoligo, spinning there behind them. And of course, both drivers are going to have ERS here. James, with loads of speed, looking to the outside. He's up in a P4. Will he look to make the double move? He's going to look to the outside. The Red Bull covers him off a little bit late. No contact there, though. But James up into fourth and is looking very dangerous and very quick as of right now. As that is Alexis Beast diving off into the pit lane. So he thinks those medium compound tires are done. So he'll dive off into the pit lane and give P3 to James, who's had a very good showing as of right now. And of course, Oreo African retiring there in the pit lane. Of course, hopefully that car is ghosted and not going to impact any of our drivers. But when you retire in the pit lane, you do get spat back out. As Alexis Beast for Red Bull pits as well. But of course, James looking very quick early on in this race for Aston Martin. Has had a great drive now early and really just flying past the Haas of KevProd. But up at that front, that gap is now down to under a second as we reach the halfway mark. Of course, really getting into that pit stop phase, especially for these medium compound runners, such as Viperize. Of course, a number of cars pitted early on in this race, whether due to damage or under the safety car. But Bamboo Vegas now within DRS range of Viperize, as we are on lap number 14. Of course, coming now onto the back straight. Will have DRS, and Bamboo Vegas will have DRS. It's a little bit loose there from Viperize, so he's potentially struggling with those mediums getting very, very warm. as that gap now coming down. It was about a second early on this back straight. But it seems that Vegas only going to gain about a quarter of a second, maybe 3.5 tenths. He will gain 3 tenths there, but a big twitch there from Viperize is going to lose him even more time. So Viperize with a lot more straight line speed, and he will dive off into the pit lane. Of course, going to be able to keep it nice and tight, but he's going to be looking for that undercut of Bamboo Vegas, who now takes the lead here on as we start lap number 15. So it is your pole sitter back up in the lead right now, but of course he's going to have to box again in order to jump up. Of course, James, I believe, receiving that penalty for ignoring a yellow flags, but of course that penalty will certainly be subject to review, as Viperize as well dives into the pit lane for Mercedes. And he'll try to come out, and he will come out just ahead of Resweat Gaming, but he'll be under threat early on here. But a lot of the pack really starting to spread out, so we'll just have to keep an eye on that gap between Bamboo Vegas and Viperize, of course. So if we go ahead and check that gap to the leader, of course, 23 seconds is Kevin Cal able to overtake R. Stratting, who has spun. And he's going to lose a load of time, so that's terrible news for the Ferrari driver. We'll see if we can spot any damage on that car through the spectator cam. There doesn't seem to be any damage on that Ferrari, so he was able to get out of there decently well with that. But of course, the gap at 23.5 seconds between Viperize and Bamboo Vegas, as we are on lap number 15 now. So we'll just have to wait and see how far that gap can go down. Of course, coming through these final couple of corners, it'll be very interesting to see when and if Bamboo Vegas chooses to pit as he comes into turn 16 now. He will not pit this lap. He'll continue to stay out. But as Viperize sitting in 10th, looks like a number of cars electing to stay out, one of which is not Kevin Cal. He'll dive into the pit lane for Mercedes, so we'll just have to see how much time he loses. If Kendrick's able to overtake JD Bass, who does the same, he could look to go very deep into the pit lane, though, as JD Bass and R. Stratting with a collision. JD Bass receives a 5-second time penalty, as does R. Stratting. So chaos there. So potentially JD Bass looking for a move into the pit lane, a la Sebastian Vettel, but just really making a hash of it and getting massive penalties for both drivers. So certainly, again, something that needs to be reviewed. And the Ferrari's double stacking, but the Ferrari of R. Stratting gets to change his front wing. So Resweat Gaming is now put at a massive disadvantage. And R. Stratting is just still sitting in the pit lane, and now he's finally back underway, which will allow Risa to get into the pit lane. And this is horrible for Ferrari, as both their drivers now losing loads and loads of time, and they're sitting in 14th and 15th, so horrible for them. Of course, Viperize now, that gap was at 24.5 seconds a lap ago. It's at 23.3 now. So Viperize is really getting those fresh, hard compound tires up to temperature rather quickly. Of course, Kevin Cal was about 5 seconds down, so you're going to lose about 25 seconds, it seems, of race time in the pit lane. If Kevin Cal's anything to go off of, and it seems that the Alpine of Bamboo Vegas will stay out yet another lap as that gap. So Viperize continues to come down. Of course, we're going to jump back over to the interval as well as tire. It'll be very interesting to see not only when Bamboo Vegas decides to box, but also when James decides to box for Aston Martin, as he's shown a lot of pace early, but of course he has to serve a 5-second penalty, at least as it stands right now, as we have the Haas of Dodaligo diving into the pit lane to change off of those hard compound tires. So they seem to be getting really to the end of their life, as sadly Formula Jonah not seemingly able to take his car back over. So he sadly seems to be out of this race. As Alex is able to overtake Dodaligo through the pit lane, as does Kevin Cal. So Dodaligo will seem to come out in P9, so currently with 2 points. But of course, a lot of racing left to go, and a lot of things to watch out for that could still happen. Of course, 3.5 seconds is the current gap up at the front between Bamboo Vegas and James. Definitely strong showings from both of them early, but keep an eye on Viperize, who was your net leader as the pit stop phase started. Of course, that gap between himself and Bamboo coming down all the time, and he's currently the leader of the drivers that are certainly going to go to the end of this race. Of course, here comes Bamboo Vegas hard braking now, right at that 100-meter board. Keeps it nice and tidy through that final hairpin. Will he finally choose to come in and swap off of those hard compound tires? He will not, so he's continuing to stay out. Even as the lap times continue to drop, as will James on their 17-lap-old hards and 14-lap-old mediums as we begin lap number 18 here at Shanghai. As there goes Viperize. Sadly, we have lost the Mercedes, who led for a majority of the early part of this race. So Viperize has disconnected now. So hopefully we can get him back in. But could that mean Bamboo Vegas is going to be on track to win this race? As Jim from Williams dives into the pit lane, and so he'll swap over to the medium compound now. We're just going to try to get Viperize back in here, if you'll give me a second. Of course, that pack really spread out as this pit stop phase continues. There's just a number of drivers really just struggling with connection issues. Of course, going to try to get Viperize back in as JD Bass with a 3-second time penalty for track limits. You guys still looking for their three drivers? Was it certainly if that means you are interested in joining LSR? Definitely put a comment there in chat, and we'd be happy to hook you up with a link. Of course, full-time seats in both our top two groups are already full, but we can certainly get you in as a reserve, as we generally have a number of seats open every race weekend to allow for some of our reserves to jump in and get some racing experience. And of course, same idea, you will contribute to both drivers and constructors standings, as Bamboo Vegas now coming into the pit lane finally. And of course, going to be hoping to get Viperize back, as you can see that Mercedes no longer ghosted as he comes down the back straight. So how we'll have to keep an eye on that gap. Of course, there is Bamboo Vegas coming out to the pit lane. He'll swap over onto those medium compound tires on which he is going to end this race. And as he comes down the pit lane, where will he come out in relation to Viperize? Of course, here he comes. There's the Alpine in front of him. How much of an advantage will he have? Viperize coming in. That gap is at about a second, but not quite there. And of course, Jim, we'd be happy to get you at least in the Discord for a reserve role. But if you give me a second, as that gap is 0.3 between Bamboo Vegas and Viperize. Of course, Viperize really struggling with connection and losing a lot of time early. He's going to look down the inside of the Alpine, but not going to quite be able to make anything work. And of course, Bamboo going to have to take some time to get those mediums up to temperature. So will he have the time to do that before Viperize, who's shown to have a lot more straight line speed than the Alpine that is currently in front of him? It doesn't seem that he'll be able to pull enough of a gap early on here before this back DRS zone, which is where the Mercedes, I believe, will have a major advantage. Of course, Alexisby's there in the background in P5 is going to be looking to make some moves nicely. And James, your current leader, of course, going to have to box again still. But as we come now onto the back straight, that gap at about 0.7 of a second. Of course, already coming down. We'll have to see how much time can Viperize gain, as up to 0.8 now with DRS finally open. But it's not a lot of time gained for Viperize. So is Bamboo Vegas really going to be able to pull away with this race now after a really unlucky happening from Viperize? As we can see Kevin Cal and Kev Prod battling side by side. So battle of the Kevins here down in these final couple of corners. It will be Kev Prod holding the advantage for now, but of course Kevin Cal going to have another chance with DRS as JD Bass and Bud Fedora swap places, but of course Jim going to be putting them under threat, but it is Kev Prod with the advantage for now. And of course Dodaligo, his half teammate, currently setting the new fastest lap of the race, and does hold that point for a minute, as Fedora with a 3-second time penalty due to track limits. But of course it is still James out in the lead on those medium compound tires, of course pitted back on lap 4. This runs very wide there, so those hard tires really struggling for the Aston Martin. Of course, going to lose a lot of lap time by pitting, but he's almost certainly going to have to pit again, won't he? Off of those very old medium compound tires. Of course, if you'll give me a minute, if you just give me a minute, if you can join off that link, Jim Pim, that'd be awesome. Thank you very much to was it the admin side for getting Chimp that link. But yeah, of course, James coming now, going to be hitting finally off of those mediums with about 8 laps to go. So that'll leave Kendricks in the net lead. But of course, it's the same story as the Alpine driver, as the second Alpine car currently on track to need to pit again, or really stay out here, because he could certainly go to the end on these old hard compound tires. Versus teammate of Bamboo Vegas, 3.3 seconds behind as Bamboo Vegas sets a new fastest lap, as there's James now swapping 4 soft compound tires, of course, serving that 5-second penalty from earlier. He's going to be likely behind the Mercedes of Kevin Cal for the moment, but he's likely to, he should be able to make a run back as he comes out just behind the Mercedes of Kevin Cal. So Kevin is going to be under threat almost immediately from that Aston Martin on a very quick set of soft tires. But it is currently Kendricks in the lead, but Bamboo Vegas certainly closing in very closely as the Haas of Kevprod is round, or of Dodoligo rather, is round there at turn number 2, so he'll drop well down out of the points. So that promotes Jim up into that final point scoring position, as JD Bass, Fedor, and Jim is going to be a battle to keep an eye on, as Jim taking a peek of the inside of the AlphaTauri, but thinking better of it. Of course, taking a look up here into this battle for 6th position. Of course, you can see also the battle between Kevprod and Alexis Beast up ahead. The Aston Martin takes a peek to the inside, as Resefoot Gaming will retire from the session. That will be there in the pit lane. So there's your 4th retirement so far of this race. If you come down on the back straight, of course, you can see the Alpines leading in the distance, jumping up into this battle for 4th place. You can see that Haas just behind the Red Bull with DRS wide open. He's gaining slowly as James able to overtake Kevin Cal behind, as the Haas looks to the outside, the Red Bull defending very nicely there, and he'll hold 4th position for now, but James overtaking Kevin Cal in the back straight, sadly, so that's the Aston Martin up into P6, as Jim able to overtake Fedor in much a similar fashion. Of course, they're going to be battling into the hairpin. Up here in this battle for the final podium position, it's going to be the Haas looking around the outside through the long turn 1 and 2. He's going to be carrying a lot of speed. Can he make the move stick into 3 and 4? He still had a little bit of a look there, but not quite able to make the move stick, and James pulling right up to the back of this fight. Of course, that gap at the front now down to a second between the 2 Alpine teammates. And of course, Bamboo Vegas closing very rapidly onto Kendricks, especially through this twisty Sector 2. It should be a rather easy pass. We should, of course, not likely to see team orders, as it shouldn't matter here for the Alpine teammates. Of course, Bamboo Vegas just showing so much more pace and looking to get by already. As contact there, that is there. As Bamboo Vegas tries to overtake Kendricks, there's contact between the Alpine teammates, and that'll allow Viperize to move back up into P2. So very aggressive there from Bamboo Vegas as he tries to jump up. Kevprod with a mistake there as well. Was that due to an incident, or was that just a mistake from the Haas car? But certainly contact between the Alpine teammates here on lap number 22 here at China, as Bamboo Vegas just not waiting at all to get past his teammate, as they had contact all the way through turns number 12 and 13, and Kendricks now dropped to 3rd, as Viperize was also able to overtake him. And now it is James trying to make a run back at Alexis Beast. Here it comes the Aston Martin on the soft compound of tires. That gap's down to about 0.3 of a second, but he's not going to have a move here into turn number 1. Of course, this is because battle on track, as a big mistake there from Alexis Beast does allow James to get through. I looked away for a brief second because I didn't expect anything to come of it, but a mistake there in those first couple of quarters from Alexis Beast allows James to sneak up the inside into turn number 3. And he moves up into P4 and can now go chasing after Kendricks for that final podium place. Of course, still a good bit of racing to go, and those soft tires are likely to not last very long, and they'll be rather worn by the end of this race. But of course, James now going to be looking to just run away from Alexis Beast and Kevin Cal behind him. Of course, they get already to about a second, so he should be able to run away rather nicely. Of course, up to 1.1 and change now. So he is able to break DRS for the moment, and it does seem like he is going to hold it. So now he can go racing after the second Alpine driver of Kendrick's. Of course, Alexis not going to be giving up, and Kevin Cal behind, as we do have a spin that is Fedora for AlphaTauri. So he'll drop 2 positions, both to Jonah and Arstrade. Is now at the hairpin. It's Kevin Cal pull up 7/10 the gap between him and Alexis as they battle now for P5. But it is the Alpine as James with a new fastest lap of the race, so that extra point currently does go to the Aston Martin team. Of course, James with a very strong showing here, of course having to box rather early on in this race, as it seemed, but has shown very strong and has made a number of very, very nice overtakes as this race has continued. As we come now into Sector 2, you can see that Alpine just up in the distance. That gap is now coming down at about a second a lap as it stands. Of course, when James was overtook was Alexis Beast actually just a lap ago. So I think he made up 2 seconds on that last lap. So the Aston Martin showing some very strong lap times, as well as this Mercedes, a little twitch there from Alexis Beast on the Red Bull, so he could be under threat from Kevin Cal on the Mercedes. Of course, under threat from the race winner from round 1 at Circuit of the Americas. Of course, coming around these couple of turns closely, that gap now down to about half a second. So here comes that Red Bull. Of course, you can see James closing up quickly to the back of Kendrick's later on in this race. But here comes the Mercedes. You can see it just underneath that rear wing. Kevin Cal will have a shot here. He takes a look to the outside here into the hairpin. A little bit risky there from the Red Bull, risking contact as Kevin has to take avoiding action. But that move not quite going to be done. A little bit of a lockup there from Kevin too, so that could have been disastrous for both cars. But up at the front, it is James quickly pulling up to the back of Kendrick's. That gap now down to about 2 or 3 tenths. Will he make the move up through turn 1 and 2 as he did on Alexis Beast? Not quite going to have the move early on here. Is he going to look for the switchback here on exit? He will put that Aston Martin to the inside, and on the exit of turn 4, he has the positional advantage slightly, but of course, he's not going to have the inside advantage into the hairpin now into turn number 6, and it will be the Alpine taking that inside line and able to make advantage. But switch back again. Will the Aston Martin finally be able to make that move work? Still side by side is the Aston Martin and the Alpine. So very nice little battle here. The Aston Martin looking around the outside as they continue to battle side by side. And it will be James now moving up into P3 for Aston Martin. So very, very good driving as that Alpine and Aston Martin battled. Now James, of course, going to be looking to run away with that last of the podium places. So Alexis Beast and Kevin behind him, not only going to be looking to battle with each other, but going to be looking to catch Kendrick's. Of course, on those very, very old hard compound tires, which are going to be struggling here. Of course, 3 laps to go as we cross the line. And there's the Red Bull and the Mercedes. Of course, you can see the Alpine there in the foreground, only with a 3-second advantage. As here comes Kevin Cal, taking a look once again for that outside line. As Alexis just still with the advantage. And Kevin Cal looking for the inside on exit as Alexis runs very wide. It's Kevin Cal on exit for the moment, and he will have the outside line through that final corner. And it'll be the Mercedes for the moment, looking to go all the way to the left to break that toe. Weaving all over this pit straight in order to try and keep that advantage. The Red Bull looking to the inside. Now Alexis up the inside of turns 1 and 2. He'll have the advantage for the moment. But of course, in the battle side by side again. Of course, Kevin Cal taking that very wide line as the side by side battle continues at the inside for turns number 3 and 4. And it's the Mercedes able to defend very nicely through that opening salvo of corners and able to hold the advantage. But of course, he's not completely out from under pressure yet. That gap a tenth and a half. Alexis looks to the inside, but thinks better of it. As they make the run here. Of course, this battle going to be continuing to rage now as 3 seconds the gap. The Red Bull looking to the outside now through around Sector 2, but not quite going to be able to make that move done. Of course, these 2 cars tied together by the gearbox and the front nose, it seems. As they continue to make their way around this Shanghai circuit. But of course, Alexis is going to have the advantage of DRS now. As we make our way down onto this long back straight. Here they come through this long right-hander and on the back straight, and it's a much larger advantage now for Kevin Cal. That gap up to 6/10 as he now will continue to move the brake to toe. DRS open at the back. Of course, the red light flashing on both the back of the Mercedes and the Red Bull. It'll come down to about 4/10 as we come now down into the hairpin. Kevin Cal able to keep it nice and tidy. A little bit of a drift there from Alexis Beast, so going to lose him lose him a tenth or two. And of course, Kev Prod now showing up to the back of the fight. Don't rule out the Haas driver from this battle for P5 late on in this race, as we now have 2 laps to go. Of course, James looking very nicely as of this moment, but of course, he's going to be hoping for Viperize to make a mistake late on in this race. Of course, Kendrick's now really trying to take advantage of that battle behind, but that gap is now down to 2 seconds. So Kendrick certainly is going to have to get a move on if he wants to stay ahead of both Kevin Cal and Alexis Beast, who have battled very, very nicely here during these later stages of the race. Of course, turns 10 and 11 now. That gap 9/10. So Kevin Cal really starting to pull away a little bit from Alexis Beast, but still not fully out of DRS range just yet. 6.5 is the gap, up to about 3/4 of a second. So Kevin Cal much more comfortable through a lot of these corners than the Red Bull he's dueling with behind him. And of course, Kendricks with a big mistake there. He's lost a load of time on this lap. That gap now down to 1.2 seconds during this penultimate lap. Of course, Alexis Beast still in it. Don't rule out Kevprod, who's got 1.1 seconds to Alexis Beast in front of him. 1.3 seconds is the gap that Kendricks has, but he's going to have to keep running away as we start lap number 28. Here we go, Kendricks out of that final corner for the second to last time. He's going to have to continue to pull away from the Mercedes and the Red Bull as Dodoligo and Jim swap places in that final corner. That's going to be another battle here in the dying stages of this race as we come through turns number 1 and 2. Of course, that gap going to be coming down very, very quickly between the Alpine and the Mercedes. Of course, the Alpine on very, very old hard compound tires, and you can see how much of an advantage Kevin Cal has in that Mercedes with those hard compound tires, which are probably about half as worn as Kendricks's are. Of course, it's not easy to overtake here in Sector 2, so that would certainly open the door for Alexis Beast as that gap between Kendricks and Kevin Cal now down to about 0.4 of a second. As we make our way, and you can see how much that gap drops right up to the back, and contact as we have a car hat? What is going on here? As it seems that Kevin Cal just drove straight through Kendricks. What happened there? That's about the... Well, I guess you have seen a number of overtakes today, but I think that's the first undertake that I've ever seen here in League Racing. Certainly, that was very strange, but it seems that Kevin Cal is now up into P4. I have no idea what happened, but Kendrick's holding P5 for the moment. Here comes Alexis Beast on him. Alexis Beast will not have DRS. I don't know what happened, but it will be Bamboo Vegas winning for Alpine. It'll be Viperize coming home in second as the Mercedes comes to the line very strongly. A great drive from James for Aston Martin to finish P3. Here comes Kevin Cal to the final corner. He'll finish P4 after that strange overtake. It'll be a battle to the line from Kendrick and Alexis Beast, but they finish 5 and 6. It'll be Kevprod in 7th for Haas. Dodoligo now coming to the line, should finish 8th as Jim able to pull away from JD Bass to finish 9th for Williams. Those two drivers will come to the line and hold position. And here comes JD Bass out of the final corner. Of course, he's got RS Stratting behind him, so it'll just depend on how many penalties those drivers had. And it will be RS Stratting taking that final point-scoring position for Ferrari. And of course, sadly, we're not able to keep Formula Jonah and Speedy Gunner around. Of course, they'll finish 11th and 13th, respectively. And then Fedora will come to the line at the end of the race. But that was certainly a very strange overtake that we saw there from Kevin Cal, but certainly great drives up and down the field. And thank you to not only our drivers, but also you all for being here to deal with some of the technical difficulties we've had. And ultimately, congrats now to Bamboo Vegas for Alpine in winning this race. Of course, congratulations. Of course, Kendricks rather deserving of the driver today after that long stint on those hard tires. Certainly a great race, as we can see. The Alpine driver coming down the walkway that's on the tunnel there. Of course, great drives from all three of these drivers. You can see them on the podium now. Of course, the trophy there for the celebration. You can see, of course, the Alpine team there celebrating this victory. But a great drive and a great race to Bamboo for the race. And of course, as you can see there from the LSR post, we will have some changes, so hopefully we won't have quite as many technical issues in the coming weeks. But certainly, I do hope that you'll like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But it is Bamboo Vegas winning from pole position ahead of Viperize. James bags P3 and the fastest lap, so he'll get that bonus point. Kevin Cal finishes 4th after that strange overtake of Kendrick's that I think will certainly be making LSR highlight reels in the future. And it's Kendrick's finishing P5 and, of course, netting driver of the day. So a very strong showing from both Alpine and from Mercedes. It is a Lexus Beast in P6 for Red Bull, and then the Haas duo of Kev Prod and Dodo Ligo. The Swedes then are also 8th and 9th, with Jim finishing in P9 for Williams, on R Stratting rounding out that top 10. Of course, sadly, not going to be able to do a post-race interview, as I do have to leave, so sadly I cannot make time for that. But certainly, thank you for joining us again. Massive apologies for the amount of technical issues that we had to deal with throughout the race today, but certainly hope that you'll continue to follow LSR for the future. Of course, stay tuned for Group 3 running just after this. It should be about 15 minutes to half an hour before that gets started. And so certainly I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Of course, that should be commentated by two of our Group 2 drivers here, of James, and if I'm not mistaken, it should also be one of the Kevin, I believe it'll be Kevin Cal and James commenting that, so definitely stay tuned. But of course, thank you for joining. Congrats to Bamboo Vegas and the rest of our podium sitters, and hope you'll have a great rest of your day. And we will see you next weekend, at least here on Group 2, for our first of the sprint rounds around Portimao. So, of course, Portuguese Grand Prix next weekend. So definitely stay tuned for that. Should be a very interesting race. And, of course, bonus points on the board. So we'll see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Signing off for now.